world. I'm very happy to welcome you this morning. It is 14th of May 2026. In fact, I was late for the stream because I was listening to the speech of the leader of the party. She's called Kemi Badenoch. Have I pronounced it well? Kemi Badenoch. And she was Adegoke. She's Nigerian. I will, I will just say Adegoke. I will not say Bednak. I will say Adegoke. I will just say, I will say, she's called, I will just say I was listening to Adegoke Olufemi Olufunto Adegoke. Where? Olufemi. And I think she's the leader of the conservative. Okay, I'll just call her by her name. She's called Olufemi Adegoke. Olukemi. But you see, but in England, I'm sure they're calling her Kemi. But I think when you just pronounce it the way an African pronounces it is Olukemi Adegoke Olufunto. And I was listening to her. Since she was really, she was talking about the failure of Keith Starmer, and while I was listening to that speech, there's something that she said that I said I'm going to take that home. She said winning an election is not important, because most people think winning an election is the most important thing, and most people focus on winning an election or getting there. But it's not really a question of winning an election. It's a question of service delivery. It's a question of service delivery. It's a question of, just because, Kemi was talking about, the failure of Keith Starmer. I was listening to that speech. That's why I'm late today. And she was talking about, how, the Labour Party has been slacking. And I was just listening in. It was very interesting to hear, her speech. And one thing that came out very clearly from the speech of Kemi Olukemi, all right, was the freedom of speech. I realized that in the United Kingdom, I think there is a lot of freedom of speech, because even in Kenya, when you compare, how the British parliamentarians, how they do their business compared to how Kenyans we are. I think I think in England, I would say that they have more freedom of speech. Somebody can can just talk and in front of the prime minister, and the prime minister will not do anything. Well, in Africa, that's very new in Africa. In fact, sometimes I was like, did she say that? I was like, wow, you guys have a lot of freedom, like in the UK as compared to Africa. In Africa, a woman cannot speak the way Olukemi Adegoke, Bednock, the way she was speaking. That is very interesting. In fact, I think for the first time, I can clearly, and because I think the next prime minister I think she's the next prime minister. I think Olukemi is the next prime minister. From listening to her speech, I was late because I was listening to Olukemi Adegoke Bednock. And I think she will be the first black prime minister. I've already said that. And the way she was handling the members of parliament of the Labour Party, oh man, I think that's a win. I think that's a win because I think, but you see, that's why I'm saying, that's why she was really against Keith Starmer. She was saying, but like you just won the election, but when it comes to service delivery, you're really slacking, you know. I think I don't know. See her on the ballot. I'd really want to see her on the ballot. Will she rise above, you know, the race card? Will she rise above her race? Will she rise above her gender? It will be a very interesting uh, election to watch. And I can tell you for free that in the next general election, you know, I'm sure Adegoke will be, I think it will be in 2029. Wow, it will be in 15th August 2029. Well, I really hope that, but one thing, one of the biggest, one of the things that I'm saying, that Adegoke will be the next Adegoke, Kemi Badnoch will be the next Prime Minister of England, of London, sorry, still not England. The next Prime Minister, the next British Prime Minister, is because um, of her party will take majority of the seats, because currently, when your party, when you have the majority of the seats, of course you'll become the prime minister, because Kate Steimer has 400 seats, and Kemi Adegoke has 116. So it means if the Conservatives win the next general election, then automatically she will become the next prime minister. I really hope it will be a very interesting, election to watch. They would really chew up this man, Keir Starmer. They would really chew him up. The questions up to there, feel free to subscribe and comment. I'm very happy. I was just late because I was listening to her speech. I was like, what? What? This woman, man. These guys is really angry, like in Kenya. And let me just talk about that just for a moment. Let me talk about that for a moment. And I want to tell you guys the differences between our political system and this and other systems around the world. In Kenya, unfortunately, it's not bad, but the freedom of expression. I think in Kenya we are like, yeah, there's freedom of expression, but you cannot express yourself the way they are expressing themselves, like in the UK, like they can just talk and nothing will happen to them. But here in Kenya, even if you're a member of parliament or stuff like that, people tend to be a little bit more careful, not to rub people the wrong way. I think that's the difference between Kenyan politicians and the politicians in other countries. All right. Any questions up to there? Today we have something. We're gonna talk about what is happening, and I'm going to give you a recap of what is happening in Kenya for those who are watching me from other places. I want to welcome you this morning to this channel, and I am your host, El Patador, Le PDG, Raymond Mutuku. And I'm very happy to welcome you to this stream. Any questions up there? Feel free to subscribe and comment, and let me know. Let me know if you're enjoying our streams. You can easily by simply subscribing. All right. So we'll be talking a little bit of politics, just a mixed grill, so that we can know exactly what's happening. So today is Thursday, the 14th of May, and for those who don't know, today this constituency known as Imukur Dikir, Imukur Dikir, they're going for an election, and this is because they're member of parliament, Emurua Dikir. It's called Emurua Dikir. They're member of parliament passed away, and now today they're going to face it in the ballot. Today is a big day. In fact, today is a very big day, and today I will explain you why it is a big day for Kenyans, and for those who want to do a litmus test. You want to know, is this acidic, or is this, if you remember your chemistry, you have to do a litmus test to know um, the chemical compound is found in a substance. Is it acidic, or is it basic, or is it an alkaline? That is what chemistry taught us. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, for those who don't know, because there are people who are new to this channel, the people of Emurua Dikir, they are going to the ballot this morning. Because today they lost their member of parliament this year, this man called Johana Kipngeno, and he died in a helicopter crash. So this day is a very important day, because for the first time, you know, these two major parties in Kenya, that is the UDA party and the DCP party, will be facing head on. For now, today is when we will know whether it is true or it is not true that DCP has been gaining a foothold in the country. Today is the day. Today is the day which will actually, for what will happen today, and I want to explain it very quickly in the next 1 hour. It's a very important day for those who don't know, and for those who love politics like myself. Today they will be able to know if DCP party is strong in the Rift Valley. Today, for so long, most people said that nobody can encroach the stronghold of the president. That is, nobody can encroach in Rift Valley, and Narok is found in Rift Valley. So that is the question. That is the question, because that is the question everybody wants to know today. Is it true that William Ruto has hold of Rift Valley? That's just a general question that people want to know. Or is it a fallacy? Or is it true that he has lost, a big chunk of the vote? It's a vote-rich region. The area that is Rift Valley, it has more than 5.5 million voters. So today morning, voters, I'm sure right now they're preparing to go to vote, and it's gonna be an amazing time to see, because today we will know, because there are 44,000 registered voters in the 94 polling stations as of today. So it means that for you to win, to be the next member of parliament of Emurua Dikir, you will need close to 22,000, at least 20,000 votes, for you to win. All right. Any questions up to there? Feel free to be part and parcel of our streams and tell me. That is exactly, and that is the reason I was listening to this member of parliament of Northwest Essex, known as Olukemi Adegoke Bednock. I was listening to her, and you know why what she said today? She said that winning an election is not the game. Most people unfortunately think that that what you need is just winning an election, and once you win the election, you just relax until the next general election. That is not true. Uh, in fact, winning winning an election, all right, winning an election is just the beginning. So we're going to track, this morning, because this is the day. We're not going to do this again. So it's today, and then I'll give you the information, and you will be able to know. So there are two main horses. There are two candidates. A man called Victor Rotich, that is the candidate of the DCP, and there's this man called David Keter, or Dollar Line. So these are the two competing candidates. And let me tell you something very interesting about Emurua Dikir election. In 2013, this man called Yohana Ngeno, was able to win this constituency, that is with 17,000 votes. And he was not even in Jubilee, he was in KNC. In 2017, Johanna Ngeno again won the election with 16,000 votes. Again, this man called Dollar Line, in fact, had URP. He's the man of William Ruto. The point man of William Ruto in Emurua Dikir is known as Dollar Line. Yes, Dollar Line. If I didn't miss that, he was the candidate of URP. He got 7,000 votes in 2013. He was the candidate of Jubilee in 2017. He got 13,000 votes, and in 2022 again, Dollar Line got close to 14,000 votes. So here you see that this man called David Keter, or Dollar Line, has been suffering under, has been, he was always losing, like he was always number two, all right, every time to this man called Yohana Ngeno. So the question that the people of the great region of Emurua Dikir are wondering, is it true that because this man called David Keter, or Dollar Line, is the candidate of UDA, because they said that, so the question that the people are asking is UDA still strong in that region, that is Emurua Dikir? Are they strong? And most people are saying, what, they're not that strong, and you see, the thing is, because here, and I want to really stress on this fact, that in this election of today, it seems that I've been listening to a lot of analysts, people who are analyzing the situation on the ground and asking questions, what next? And most people are suggesting, or most people are saying that this time, the people of Emurua Dikir what will happen today, it will be a protest vote. I don't know, but what do you think? If you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment. I'm very happy to be here this wonderful morning. I've been late, and there was something that I was doing, but don't worry, I'll be here and we'll be analyzing what is happening in our elections. Any questions up to there, feel free to subscribe and comment and tell me where you're watching me from. I am your host, Raymond Mutuku, and let us continue with our read. So, also, before we continue, let's do a little bit of politics, and I will tell you what is happening in our country today. So, for those who have been following the news, you realize that the team of Rigathi Gachagua, they went to the courts. And there's something that happened today, and I was really impressed I'm not really impressed, but I was saddened, but by what I was, but what happened in our courts today, and that is exactly why I want to explain to you why. Number one, all right, you see, the defense lawyers of, of course, who went to court and they started poking holes in the evidence that was presented before them. All right, they claimed that the evidence or the medical evidence adduced in the courts was false. They were saying, and that they were trying to claim that Rigathi Gachagua was not admitted in the hospital. So, for those who are not following news, I'll just give you a quick summary of what happened. So they cross-examined Dr. Gikonyo, the proprietor of, Karen Hospital, and this is the catch, because I felt that they wanted to win dishonestly, not dishonestly per se, but in the legal world, they don't say dishonest winning. They will say something like procedural technicality. That is just a way of, we just want to rig, the outcome by finding mistakes in your filing, by finding mistakes in your documents. That is called procedural technicality for those who need to know. And I'm trying to explain that to you, my dear viewers, that these lawyers of who, they're trying to rig, or they're trying to win unfairly. That is, you're trying to look for mistakes in the documentation or in the evidence so that you can discredit the other party. Any questions after that, feel free to subscribe and comment and tell me where you're watching me from. So this is what happened. They took the document and the first question that they asked Dr. Gikonyo is, who is RG? Because RG in the document, Dr. Gikonyo, of course, said that because they were dealing with a high-profile individual, they could not name the document with the official names of that person. So he was told, you know what, that explanation is not true. So he was told to explain who RG is, because in the document they kind of they used abbreviations as reference to Rigathi Gachagua. So they said RG might as well mean Rose Gitau. So it means that that document lacks the biodata of, of Rigathi Gachagua, and it can be as well as, it could be as a it was incomplete, and it could not be admissible in a court of law. Any questions up there, feel free to subscribe and comment. So this defense team comprised of lawyers who are representing Parliament. Also Parliament was, in the suit. The Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate, and the mover of the motion, that was Mutuse, that is the Member of Parliament of Kibwezi. All right. So those were the ones who were, and the question they were asked was, did the impeachment meet all the legal and constitutional parameters? And the answer from the defense lawyers was that yes, the impeachment met all the legal and constitutional parameters. What are we talking? There's a lot of jargon, legal jargon. And don't worry, I'll break it down for you. They said that everything was, the hearing, the pleadings, Rigathi Gachagua argued that the hearing was rushed, that within, within a month, he was already impeached, and the court had already, made its ruling. But the defense lawyers said that the lawyers of Rigathi Gachagua were given an opportunity in Parliament to go through all the evidence that was adduced by the member of Parliament of Kibwezi West, that is Mutuse. The lawyers were given, also supplied materials of all the evidence that was adduced in Parliament, and they went through all the documents. Secondly, they argued that when they went to the Senate, the lawyers of Rigathi Gachagua were also given an opportunity and a copy, and they were each supplied with a copy of the evidence and all the materials and all the evidence that was adduced by the team of Mutuse. Then the other question that was brought, or the other question that was raised, was there enough public participation? Were the people given a chance to contribute their views in the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua? And of course, they said yes. They said, Parliament published notices across the country in both English and Kiswahili, and they said that what they were asking the question, was it done, appropriately? Was there any process that was did they follow all the legal and constitutional parameters? They said yes. They supplied all the parties with the materials, and within the stipulated time, because the issue here is time. Now, to answer the question that the process was expeditiously rushed, and that Rigathi Gachagua was not given enough time to answer some of those questions, but they said, what, the Speaker of the Senate gazetted 10 days of, he gave them time to come up with a defense. He gave them time. So he said that that it was rushed, but they said no, it was not rushed, because the evidence that was adduced in Parliament, they were also given a chance to go through the evidence. And when the people of Mutuse went to Senate, they also gave them a copy of the evidence. So what more time do you need to either, to refute the evidence? What more time do you need? All right. So, and they said that the process was done in a manner that, was unlawful. But they said that is not true, because they followed all the procedures. They said no, they just said, the other argument was that no, they used Parliament and they used the Senate as a rubber stamp to kick out Rigathi Gachagua. But they said, you know what? No, we didn't do that. They acted within their constitutional mandate. They acted within their jurisdiction. They acted within their power. They did not do anything that was not that was outrageous. This, because that is what they're trying to say, is that Senate was kind of outrageous in their actions. But they said no, Senate was not outrageous. They were excessive, they were immoral, or they were unreasonable. Never said that. Or they were exorbitant in the way they arrived at their decision. And they said that there was outside interference, which was refuted by by the defense lawyers, who said that that the process was done, the process was done, the procedure of the impeachment was above, it was above, let me say, it was just it was great. Uh-huh. So, having refuted that, they went to, you see now, and I want to explain something before we start reading, is that here, here, it's something I learned something very nice, because Dr. Gikonyo of Karen Hospital said something that really impressed me. He said he was asked a question by senior counsel Mudomi Ankolo. He was asking him, at what time was Rigathi Gachagua admitted in the hospital? And that was a very good question, because I thought the answer was amazing. Because, and I want Kenyans to know that what the answer of Dr. Gikonyo. Dr. Gikonyo said, the fact that you have taken a person to the hospital, it does not, it doesn't mean that that person has been admitted to the hospital. All right. According to him, being admitted in the hospital is, you can be, you can arriving at the door of the hospital at 3 o'clock doesn't mean that you have been admitted at 3 o'clock. So that question, he said, if you ask him again, arriving at the hospital at 3 o'clock, but once the money has been paid and the accounting officers have already said, okay, you can go ahead, then that is when, once you have paid money, that is when you are admitted in the hospital. Then they came up with another argument that the primary documents that were supplied by Dr. Gikonyo, and the final document, that there was a discrepancy. Because one of the things that these lawyers were doing, they are looking for discrepancies to discredit that Rigathi Gachagua. They want to establish the fact that Rigathi Gachagua was not admitted in hospital, because there's only one thing. Once they have established the fact that Rigathi Gachagua was admitted in hospital, and Senate was aware that this man was sick, and they still went ahead to impeach him, then it means that Senate was not acting in its mandate. Because now you cannot impeach me when I'm in hospital. And when they want to you see in this particular case, they have to prove that the actions of the Senate were not in line with the Constitution. Rigathi Gachagua has to prove to the court that Senate went ahead to impeach him with full knowledge, or being aware of the fact that he was suffering from a heart attack. And anywhere in the world, you cannot impeach a person who cannot really defend himself. It's like in boxing, you want to, somebody is already down, you want to go ahead and still give him blows. You cannot beat a man who is already down. So these guys, right now, that is exactly what is going on in our courts. I'll be monitoring the situation, and I'll be telling you exactly some of these arguments, because they want to prove that Rigathi Gachagua was not sick. That is exactly what they want to prove. They want to establish the fact that, that argument that Rigathi Gachagua was suffering from a heart attack at the time of the impeachment was null and void. They want to establish the fact that the medical evidence that was adduced in the court, was falsified or was not accurate. All right. Any questions up to there? If you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment. Any questions up to there? I'm very happy to be here this morning. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment, and tell me where you're watching from. If you're new to this channel, feel free to subscribe and feel free to comment. Any questions? Any questions up there? Any questions up there? Let's continue with the read. If you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment. Any questions? Let's continue reading. And I'm very happy to be here. And remember that today, we are still reading the scripture. As much as I love politics, but let us continue reading the scripture. Listen to me, you islands, hear this, you distant nations. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my mother's womb, he has spoken my name. He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. Any questions up there? If you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment. He said to me, "You're my servant, Israel, in whom I will display my splendor." But I said, "I've labored in vain. I've spent my strength for nothing at all. Yet what is due to me is in the Lord's hand, and my reward is with my God. And now the Lord says, he who transformed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob." Any questions up to there? Feel free to subscribe and comment. Let's continue. He who formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him and gather Israel to himself. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. He says, "It is too small a thing for you to be my servant, to restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back those of Israel I have kept." Any questions up to there? Feel free to be here every day. I'm very happy to be here. Any questions up to there? Feel free to join our channel, and and feel free to be part and parcel of our streams. I am your host, Raymond Mutuku, and today is a wonderful day. They're going. The elections. This is a day of by-elections. The people of Emurua Dikir are going back to the polls, and it's such a wonderful time. Today we're going to see whether DCP will have, a member of parliament, because if they win today, if DCP wins today, and I want to state it here very clearly, if DCP wins today, that is, the member of parliament wins, it will be a big blow to UDA. So all eyes are on these two places, that is Ol Kalau and Emurua Dikir. And something happened in Ol Kalau that seems to expose what is happening. And I want to tell you what happened in Ol Kalau. There was a candidate of I think it is DCP, who was kidnapped, a man called Njohi, who was kidnapped by he was abducted. He was just doing his campaigns, and he was abducted and taken to another area. He was shaved, and they took photos of him naked, and they used scissors and they were poking his buttocks. And this man went to the media and said, that, the people within, and he named Moses Korea, and the woman rep of Moranga, I think it's Moranga, a lady called Beth, and said, they were forcing him to show to to sign a loyalty. They told him to swear his allegiance, to the president of Kenya, that is William Ruto. They told him, unless you swear your allegiance to the president, you're gonna get it rough. And that is, you see, that is politics of Kenya. And he said that, there were people who really roughed him up and removed his clothes and took photos of his clothes to use it as leverage. So if he refuses to obey the president, then they will expose his nakedness to the whole world. And I was, when you can imagine the kind of confusion that I have, because here you are we together? Here you are. You've just listened to a politician who has been kidnapped because he's of a dissenting opinion. Now you can imagine, if you are in my shoes. I want you to be in my shoes. You're in Kenya. You're listening to a man who wants to run for parliament, and because he's of a dissenting opinion, you know, he doesn't agree he's in the opposition. His clothes are removed. All right. I want you to think about it, and I want you to be in my shoes. I want you to see that I want you to reflect on it. Now, I was just watching that man called Njohi from this place called Olkalau. He was kidnapped, and they really hassled him, and they really roughed him up. Now, after watching that Njohi, I watched the speech of the leader of opposition in the British Parliament, this lady known as Kemi Badnoch. Have I pronounced it well? Olukemi Adegoke Badnoch. And the confidence that she was expressing herself, and and there's no harm done to her. Then you start realizing the differences between the way we do our things and the way other people do their things. Because unfortunately in Kenya, standing up for the truth, standing up for the truth and having a dissenting opinion is illegal. It's unwritten. There's nowhere that it says that having a dissenting opinion is illegal. But in Kenya, unfortunately, and I'm saying this with, if you are in Kenya, you must, if the president tells you jump, you say how high. You're not supposed to go against the sitting president. And that is, unfortunately, that is something that it's really, we are creating a system that, number one, does not support, democracy. So here, democracy is on trial. Democracy is on trial. Because look, and I really don't understand, because you see the question, and let's go back to the petition of Rigathi Gachagua. The question that they were asking was this man accorded fair hearing? That is the question. And I don't know why they're missing that question. They're answering a different question. They are saying that the process of his impeachment was done, the procedure was done, the procedure was done in a manner that has been, he was impeached as prescribed by the law. But I want to ask the question, because here, the issue here, what happened in Parliament, was that the majority, sometimes the majority can be wrong. For example, it was like a mob justice. The majority can also be wrong. You see here, they use their numbers in Parliament to push for the impeachment. They use their numbers in Senate to push for the impeachment. But pushing for an agenda, you can also push an illegal agenda. Yes, you can push an illegal agenda. Pushing something in Parliament does not mean that it met all the legal parameters. Because you see, they're saying that the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua met all the legal parameters. But now I'm asking you, if we now say that from today onwards, we will all, for example, we will all worship the devil, for example, and we go to Parliament, we say from today onwards, Kenya is now, we're worshiping the devil. Yes, and then because we have numbers, we push for it, it becomes law. We go to the Senate, we push for it, it becomes law. Now, but whatever we are pushing in Parliament, whatever we are pushing in Senate, is from the word go, in totality, is just wrong. All right? In totality, in total, as a whole, in total, as a whole, in totality, whatever they were pushing for in Parliament, it was just it was a whole package of bad faith. So if we push Parliament in something in bad faith, we use our judges to rubber stamp the bad faith. Does it mean that the rule of law was followed? So what Parliament was saying is, we have the numbers, we have the money, so we'll just twist the system, and voila, we'll have the results that we want. But was that, done? Was the rule of law? Did the rule of law reign supreme? No. They were just serving their own stuff, serving their own purposes. Any questions? They were just reveling in their own, they were reveling in their own cup of iniquity. So when you tell me right now that was there really rule of law, I'll tell you a big no. I'll tell you a big no. Any questions up to there? If you're new to this channel, you subscribe and you comment. And let me tell you something. In the 15th century, in the UK Parliament, they passed a law that allowed slavery to go through. They even came up with another law called the Maryland Doctrine, the Maryland Doctrine of Exclusion of the year 1638. When you read the Maryland Doctrine of Exclusion of 1638, yes, it's a law that was enacted, but in totality or in total, it says that the Maryland Doctrine of Exclusion refers to a fundamental 1638 edict by the Maryland Colony Council designed to ensure that African Americans would remain a subordinate, non-competitive, non-compensated workforce. All right. And if you read about the 1710, and I want us to read about the law. It was called the meritorious law of 1710. I want us to go through how the law developed, and you'll be very surprised that yes, we can come up with something. It was called the Meritorious Manumissions Act of 1710 in Virginia. And it was a colonial era policy allowing the legal freedom of enslaved Africans in exchange for meritorious service or good deeds. Such actions including saving a white owner's life, inventing profitable technology, or exposing planned rebellions. So here, yes, the law was good. The law was good. According to some people, they were using the law to do their own funny things. Any questions up to there? Feel free to subscribe and comment, and I'm very happy to be here. Any questions? Any questions? So here, what they did was they used Parliament, they used the Senate to pass something that was illegal in totality, claiming, using an excuse, that it followed all the what? It followed, and I want to record that, it followed claiming, they said all the all the legal and constitutional parameters. All right. And that to me was illegal. That was illegal. Whatever they did was illegal, but it was packaged in legality. It was illegality packaged in legality. That is what happened. You cannot take me out of that, because I witnessed, I listened to all the submissions, all the pleadings, and right now, even look at what they're doing right now. They want to prove that the medical evidence adduced in the court should not be admissible, that the documents are falsified, that there are discrepancies in the document, which I think it just smells of bad faith. This is bad faith packaged to smell good, and it smells of bad faith, but it's packaged in a way to serve a purpose. And when you're asking the question that was there outside interference in the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, of course there was. Of course there was. You cannot even ask any blind person who doesn't have internet or the TV, was there outside interference? They would say yes, there was outside interference. People were being told that if you don't vote, in this, you heard what Senator Yonka said. Even apologized to Rigathi Gachagua, said, we were being forced to impeach you. Now, isn't that outside interference? If some of the members of Parliament were taking messages, were forwarding messages to Rigathi Gachagua that we were being threatened to impeach you, including the former member of Parliament of Emurua Dikir, who died, Joanna Ngeno. It was Joanna Ngeno, in fact, today, the members of the people of Emurua Dikir are the member of Parliament, Joanna Ngeno, who died. was the one who went to Rigathi Gachagua and said, you know what, we were forced to impeach you. Now, isn't that outside interference? If you ask me, the question was there grounds to impeach this man? I would say that the grounds were not enough to impeach. I still insist that with the evidence that was adduced both in Parliament and in the Senate, was not enough to impeach, a sitting deputy president. If you ask me, I'll tell you for free that the evidence that was adduced, and I will repeat, the evidence that was adduced in Parliament and in the Senate was not enough to impeach a sitting deputy president. That I will tell you for free. It smelled of, bad faith. All right. It smelled of rivalry, of unchecked rivalry. Even right now, when you look at how they're arguing, you look at people like Mudomi Ntiankolu. You can see the way they're arguing the case. You'll see that they're just political actors. They're just Any questions up there? Feel free to subscribe and comment and tell me where you're watching me from. I'm very happy to be here. Any questions? Any questions? Do you enjoy being part of our streams? Welcome to our streams, and tomorrow help us to grow this channel. You can help us to grow this channel by simply subscribing and telling us where you're watching me from. Any questions? Any questions? I'll be here for another hour because yesterday we never did much. I'll be here for another hour, or maybe I'll go to my other channel, the Chariots of Fire, and I'll be there for 1 hour. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm very happy to be here. Any questions before I leave? Any questions? Any questions? You can ask me your questions. Can ask me your questions before I leave. Any questions up there? You can ask me your questions, and I'll be very happy to, answer you. Any questions? Can ask me your questions. Any questions up to there? If you're new to this channel, subscribe and comment. I'm very happy. We'll talk in the next hour as we continue. as we continue to read. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions up to there? Feel free to subscribe and comment. In my next hour, I'll be here. Such an amazing time. Don't go anywhere. I'll be here. All right? All right. Any questions before I go?